Hey everyone, gonna do this little video. We'll have to hit on a couple articles apparently to cover this one. Some revelation, well, shocking revelations for those that don't pay attention, but just more revelations for those of us that do. From CBC News Business, Canadian key household debt ratios hit record high. So even though we've known now in recent years and for quite a long time, substantial portion of the recent decade at least is this whole, or since the crash from 2008 at least, but it goes back much further than that. But how this whole system is even continuing and maintaining, this level of output and where people aren't revolting continuously is because of debt. So people have the ability to assume and take on more debt, which gives them this false pretense of being wealthy, right? So if you can go out and buy shit on debt, even though you haven't paid for it, if you can get it in the here and now and worry about paying for it later, right? We've known this is a very, very, very powerful incentive for central planners or corporatists or marketers. That's a very great incentive for them to get you. That's the bait, right? It's like, oh yeah, we got the bait on the hook now. All we got to do is drop that line in the water and watch all the fishies swim towards it, right? And try to mow down. But I mean, if you think about it, in Canada, we're now at $1.68. So household debt climbs to $1.68 for every dollar of disposable income, according to Stats Canada. So for every dollar Canadians are bringing in, they're spending almost $1.70. Now, we know that majority of Canadians are financially illiterate. There's only 18% of women and 22% of men that are actually fully financially literate. So most of them are they don't seem to understand that, this is going to have massive negative consequences and ramifications at some stage of the game. Once the central planners and the banksters and all those that have been bailed out, see, their incentive to hamper on their clientele, their customers, is greatly reduced because they've been bailed out. So they're like, oh, I don't want to, rock the boat too much because we were the ones that were doing the same thing and someone bailed us out. So we'll give the lowly Canadians a little bit more reprieve, a little bit more time, right? And find ways to circumvent or manipulate the fact that they're so massively over leveraged, indebted, that really they should have to. It's like, okay, you need to learn a lesson now, but no one wants to no one wants to dip their toes in the water of saying, okay, you really need to suffer the consequences of this craziness because they're all doing the same thing. But one day, at some stage of the game, well, you're just going to run out of tools tools in the arsenal. I mean, I don't know how they think they're going to keep this system going a whole lot longer. I mean, when you're so much indebted and for such a long time, it's different when in your own personal life. Think about in your own personal life where you might have had a really bad thing happen in a particular year, right? Medical costs, right? Loss of something that you had to compensate for, but you work towards fixing that, and that year might have been a bad year, or that week, or that month, or that quarter, but you work to compensate and make up for that. But you know that when you're working to compensate and make up for that you're going to lose some of that potential benefits that you would have in the future, because you got to use some of that future wealth to pay down the debts that you incurred presently. When you're this high in debt, it's like, what do you think you're going to live to? You're 1,000 that the economy's going to grow forever to compensate for your stupidity? I just don't understand how they think that. But anyways, even without that, let me read this one little bit down here. The figures show that in the April to June quarter, Canadians' total household credit market debt, which includes consumer debt and mortgage and non-mortgage loans, rose by 2%, while disposable income increased by a weaker than normal 0.5%. So like I say, you just less coming in and you're spending more. So you're trying to maintain your lifestyle through debt and credit, but it's all a Ponzi scheme. It's all a game that's built on a house of cards. But let me go on to the next article. As if that's not enough. So Canadians, you're spending more than you actually bring in. And this has been going on for a long time now. Next one, Financial Post. Listen to this shocking revelation, folks. Just to give you a better understanding of the correlation of debt in Canada and why it seems like this country's, oh, look, you escaped all the bullshit. It's like they're living high and mighty. They're living in that bubble. But like I say, they're way fucking far off the ground. So when the bubble finally pops, nasty stuff, man. It's a long way down. Probably not going to survive it. A lot of people. Canada's household debt is now bigger than its GDP for the first time. So for the first time in history, Canadians as a whole owe more than the entire worth, like gross domestic product in this country over an entire year. Once again, how sustainable is that? Because you got to take into account there are people, and they're not a majority by any means, I don't think, but there's a substantial number of people like myself that don't have any of this. I'm not in fucking indebted by anything. Matter of fact, I'm to the point now where within the next few months, I'm going to be debt-free 100% completely, including my mortgage. So, zero. So, if you take the Canadians that are smart and wise and prudent out of the equation, I mean, these numbers are much higher, but because they get to spread it over the entire population with averages, right, it doesn't even seem to be as bad as what it really is. In reality, there's a lot less Canadians that are propping up this system than you would suspect or that you would expect. And it's not going to take a whole lot to knock that, like a little flick in that house of cards is going to fall over. Ottawa, the insatiable appetite of Canadians for cheap credit has been well documented since the Great Recession, as consumers piled on debt by ever-increasing numbers. Now household borrowing has reached a new milestone of sorts. For the first time, the level of debt held by Canadians has exceeded the country's gross domestic product, as the red ink spilled over into the second quarter to 100.5% of GDP, up from 98.7% during the previous 3-month period. So, I mean, it's just been getting higher and higher. That's what I mean. The Great Depression, they call it the Great Recession, but it was a Great Depression 2.0 is what was supposed to happen. The only thing that has prevented it from happening is fiat currencies and ability to centrally plan, manipulate, and print money to make it seem like you're stimulating the economy. But you're just extending and pretending. The reality of mathematics, of natural equations, it's going to play out at some stage of the game. It's just, enjoying the here and now and postponing it and putting it and kicking the can down the road. They're kicking the can down the road. But when the can gets down, at some point in time, you're going to have to catch up the can, and you're going to hit a wall where you can kick the can, but all you're going to do is dent the fuck out of it. It ain't going nowhere. It's going to be at that stage of the game where people are going to, or a lot of the bulk of Canadians or Americans or the UK or the British or the Australian, there's going to come the stage of the game where when they kick the can, they're just going to dent the can and hurt their toes and going to have to suffer the consequence for ramification of doing so. That's just the fact of the matter. I'm going to tie up this video because I got a whole lot of other ones to deal with. I'm going to, like I say, when I post up this video, I'll post the links to the articles that are relevant to this video in the description of the video, and you can go and read all this stuff. There's a couple, there's probably about 4 or 5 paragraphs that you could read after this, but it's basically just telling you the same things. Not I, but Canadians are massively indebted and extending and pretending and hoping that, the Easter Bunny, government, somebody will mix up some magical concoction or wave a magic wand and make it all go away. It's Canadian Libertarian. I love liberty.